He burst from the doorway, a gasp of frigid air stinging his lungs. Snow swirled around him, a blinding white curtain. Terror lent speed to his frozen limbs. He didn't dare look back. The heavy thud of boots in the snow told him all he needed to know. They were close. Each desperate breath was a prayer for escape, a prayer for survival. The trees were dark, menacing figures against the stark landscape. Their branches, heavy with snow, reached out like skeletal arms. He dodged between them, his chest screaming with exertion. His pursuers were relentless. He could hear their shouted threats muffled by the wind. They were closing in. He stumbled, falling to his knees in the deep snow. Panic welled up inside him, threatening to consume him. He had to get up. He couldn't let them catch him. He scrambled to his feet, his legs heavy and numb with cold. He pushed himself onward, driven by sheer terror. A flicker of movement caught his eye. A clearing just ahead. He veered towards it, hope surging through him. Maybe he could lose them in the open. He didn't see the dip in the ground. The tree well, hidden by a treacherous blanket of snow, lay directly in his path. He plunged into the icy embrace. A strangled cry escaped his lips as the breath was driven from his lungs. He landed hard, his body contorting at an unnatural angle. Pain shot through him, a searing white-hot agony. He tried to move, to free himself from the suffocating grip of the snow, but he was trapped. Panic rose again, choking him. He thrashed against his icy prison, but his struggles only served to pull him deeper. Darkness pressed in around him, the white snow turning a sinister gray. He felt his eyelids growing heavy, his body succumbing to the cold. He was going to die here. The last vestiges of his strength ebbed away. He closed his eyes, surrendering to the inevitable. His last thought was a silent plea. A plea for someone to find him, to know what had happened here. Death was not the end. It was a beginning. He opened his eyes, but he wasn't looking through his own eyes anymore. He was hovering above the snowdrift, a silent, unseen observer. He saw his own lifeless body, pale and broken, at the bottom of the well. He felt a detachment from the physical form, a sense of being untethered. Panic, fear, pain, all were gone. In their place was a strange sense of peace and a burning desire for justice. He had been murdered, hunted down like an animal, and he would not rest until his killers were brought to light. He saw the flicker of headlights in the distance. Help was coming, but it wasn't for him. Not anymore. He was invisible to them. He was a ghost, a whisper in the wind, but he could still make them see. He could still make them understand. He focused his will on the approaching vehicle. He poured all his anger, all his frustration into a silent scream. He would be heard. He would have his revenge. The FBI agents were baffled. They had been following a tip, a cryptic message about a possible kidnapping. But the snowstorm had hampered their search. And now they were lost in the middle of nowhere. "This is a fool's errand," Agent Miller muttered, his breath misting in the cold air. "We're never going to find anything out here." Agent Lee, her face grim, was about to reply when a strange feeling washed over her. A sudden chill despite the warmth of her winter gear. She felt a presence, unseen but undeniable. It was as if someone, or something, was trying to get her attention. "Wait," she said, holding up a hand. "Do you hear that?" Miller frowned. "Hear what? All I hear is the wind." But Lee wasn't listening to the wind. She was listening to the silence beneath it. A silence that seemed to hum with a faint, insistent energy. It was drawing her forward, deeper into the woods, towards the clearing, towards the tree well. The discovery of the body sent shockwaves through the small town. The victim was identified as Thomas Ashton, a journalist from the city. He had been working on a story about the town, something to do with a series of disappearances. Disappearances the local police had dismissed as runaways. Senior Sergeant Greg Olson, a man who had built a career on his reputation for honesty and integrity, was assigned to the case. He expressed his condolences to the Ashton family, vowing to find their son's killer. But behind his mask of concern, a flicker of something cold and calculating lurked in his eyes. The FBI, sensing something amiss, decided to stay on. Agent Lee couldn't shake the feeling that Thomas Ashton's spirit was still present, still trying to communicate. She started to notice discrepancies in Olson's reports, inconsistencies that hinted at a cover-up. Her suspicions grew. She was certain Olson was involved. But how? And why? She confided in Agent Miller, but he was skeptical. Olson was practically a local hero. Accusing him of murder without solid proof would be career suicide. But Lee was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Thomas Ashton deserved justice, and she, for some reason she couldn't quite explain, felt compelled to give it to him. The investigation took a turn when a local woman came forward. She had information about Ashton, she claimed, but she was too afraid to speak to the police. Agent Lee, sensing a break in the case, met with the woman in secret. The woman, her voice trembling with fear, revealed a horrifying truth. Ashton had been investigating a human trafficking ring operating in the area. Young people, mostly runaways and drifters, were being abducted and sold, and Senior Sergeant Olson, she claimed, was deeply involved. Armed with this new information, Lee and Miller were able to obtain a warrant to search Olson's property. What they found sent chills down their spines. Hidden in a locked basement, they discovered a trove of evidence: bloodstains, torture devices, fake IDs, passports, and most damning of all, a journal in Olson's handwriting detailing names, dates, and sums of money. The evidence was irrefutable. Olson was arrested that night. His arrest sent shockwaves through the community. The man they had trusted, the man who had sworn to protect them, was a monster in disguise. But Olson's arrest was only the tip of the iceberg. The investigation, now in full swing, uncovered a vast network of corruption reaching far beyond the small town. Judges, politicians, even businessmen, all were implicated in the trafficking ring. The revelations hit the town like a bomb. The sense of betrayal was palpable. People gathered in the streets, their faces etched with a mixture of anger, disbelief, and shame. How could this have happened in their town under their noses? The trial of Greg Olson and his co-conspirators was a media circus. The courtroom was packed every day with victims, families, and reporters from around the country. The evidence against them was overwhelming. One by one, the witnesses took the stand, their voices trembling as they recounted their harrowing experiences. The town held its breath as the jury delivered its verdict, guilty on all counts. A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Justice had been served, but it was a bittersweet victory. The scars of the ordeal, the knowledge of the darkness that had lurked beneath the surface of their idyllic town, would remain long after the headlines faded. The investigation continued for months, eventually leading to the arrest of over 20 individuals involved in the trafficking ring. The scandal reached the highest levels of state government, forcing resignations and sparking calls for reform. The town, once a symbol of innocence and tranquility, became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the hidden evils that can fester even in the most unexpected places. For Agent Lee, the case was more than just a job. It was personal. She had felt Thomas Ashton's presence throughout the investigation, guiding her, urging her forward. She never spoke of her experience to anyone, but she knew deep down that she had been helped by a force beyond the grave. With the trial over and the perpetrators behind bars, she visited the tree well one last time. The snow had long since melted, revealing a patch of bare earth. She stood there for a long moment, her head bowed in silent contemplation. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "Rest in peace, Thomas." Thomas passed over, and she felt his presence leave peace. The town slowly began to heal. The initial shock and anger gave way to a quiet determination to rebuild and move forward. A memorial was erected in the town square, a permanent reminder of the victims and a symbol of hope for the future. The trafficking ring had been dismantled, but the fight for justice was far from over. The case had exposed the vulnerabilities in the system, the cracks that allowed such horrors to flourish. It had also revealed the courage and resilience of the human spirit, the unwavering belief in the power of truth, and the importance of fighting for what is right. Life went on, but it was forever changed. The town had learned a hard lesson, one that would stay with them always. Evil could wear many faces. It could hide in plain sight, but it could also be defeated, with vigilance, with courage, and with an unwavering commitment to justice. And sometimes, just sometimes, it took a whisper from beyond the grave to light the way. Please like and subscribe.